Welcome back. It's the other big story on the 1st of December. Deputy President David Mabuza, in his capacity as the chair of the South African National AIDS Council, is this morning leading or expected to lead a government program to commemorate World AIDS Day. That's in Bloemfontein. So according to official figures, the total number of people living with HIV in South Africa stood at around 8.2 million by the start of this year. Newzroom Afrika's Mohlaoli is in Bloemfontein for us today ahead of those commemorations. And Tumaole, as we mark this day on each year, the question I imagine on many people's minds is in what ways things will be different this time around.
Well, in terms of the messaging there, Ayanda, the things that, the role players, including NGOs, civil society, as well as government, have been preaching and been consistently preaching at that is the issue of course, abstinence and safety and a lack of recklessness. These messages are being targeted specifically at the youth population of the country. Of course, treatment has been one of those issues that many across the globe have praised South Africa in terms of its rollout of the ARV program, something that has really helped to turn the lives of many people around. Now, when you look at the statistic that you mentioned, around 8 million people living with HIV/AIDS, that should give you an idea that that's about just under a tenth, according to the official figures in terms of Statistics South Africa, of the people in the country, a tenth of the population. Now, HIV/AIDS would be affecting predominantly the youth, and there's a disproportionately large infection rate in women. So this is something that, of course, organizations like the South African National AIDS Council are going to be tackling. And this is where I am joined, of course, by the spokesperson of the South African National AIDS Council, that is Nelson Dlamini. Dr. Dlamini, tell us a bit more about this particular issue. What theme for this year's commemoration is hoping to achieve through it?
Yes, so the theme for this year is equalize and integrate to end AIDS. And this is to really a clear-on call to say, how do you address the inequalities that still persist in our response against HIV? We know the disruptions that have been caused by COVID, but we had issues before that. We still have issues of poverty which affect how people access health services and how they adhere to treatment. But we still have barriers, especially for key and vulnerable populations. These are your transgender people, men who have sex with men. It's not easy for them to report to health facilities and freely discuss their issues and receive the type of service that is tailored to them. So by this theme, it's a call really to authorities, but to communities and all decision makers to say, let's address all these barriers, because if you look at the statistics, as you were mentioning, we have just under 8 million people living with HIV, but those on treatment are just under 6 million. We are about 5.7 or thereabouts. So we have that gap of about 2 million people who we need to get on treatment.
And another important question is, what's the current status of the HIV pandemic in the country? You said about 2 million now that we need to get on treatment. What is the overall picture? Is it something positive compared to what it was in the early 90s, for instance?
Yeah, no, we've come a long way. We've come a long way. I mean, if you look at how our treatment program is designed, we have the largest in the world, and in as much as we have that gap, but when you comparatively with other countries, we have the largest, and the biggest spender there is government, which is not the case in most, at least in the region. And when you look at the regimens that are in rollout at the moment, we have the latest. SAPRA has approved now the Depivirin ring, which is going to be a game changer, especially for women, adolescent girls and young women in particular, because when you look at new infections, they are the hardest hit. We record about 1.3 million, 1,300 new infections per week within the ages of 15 to 24. adolescent girls and young women alone. So, and also South Africa is going to participate in the new injectable technology, long-acting injectable, which is also going to be another game changer. We have PrEP and PEP now, especially to key and vulnerable pops. So we are on good ground, but we still need to do much, much more because that Agenda 2030 deadline is looming.
Now we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for that update. That was, of course, Nelson Dlamini, the spokesperson for the SA National AIDS Council, painting a picture of some success, but still a long way to go. And we'll continue to give you coverage about this particular important, if one can say, a milestone that is being observed around the globe. With that, respect to you in the studio.
Tumaole, Mohlaoli, live to us there from Bloemfontein. Thanks very much indeed.